Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we'll get one poem. So this last poem I'm going to read, I wrote this poem, the first draft of it, 24 years ago. I was attending a workshop with Brenda Hillman in Santa Fe. And I read this poem, and it's been through so many revisions, some of them tiny, minor. It's never been picked up for publication until very recently. And Cal Bedient, who is the editor publisher of Lana Turner Journal, accepted it for the next issue of Lana Turner, and that will be come out at the end of this year. And so thank you, Cal. And this poem is in reaction to a stark silence that wasn't there until the closing of the Cape Ann Tool Company in Rockport, Massachusetts. So it was very noisy. We would be anywhere. You could be anywhere in Rockport, and depending on how the wind was blowing, you would hear this loud bang, bang of metal as tools were being made. And then I was back there, I'm going to say 24 years ago, and I was like, where's the sound? There was no sound. And so that is how this poem came about. The erotics of labor. Cape Ann Tool Company stands silent now in Pigeon Cove, skinned from the salt of the sea, whose voice bellows in the winter storm, whose voice in summer slaps and simmers granite slabs. Its echo bangs enormous in memory, like a cell that holds on to disease and, in the end, silences all. The bang, clang, bang, traveling not lightly, not on tiptoe, not with ease within the silenced boys whose legs no longer hang from metal doors open at whistled noon. Those soot-faced, sweat-laced boys, bagged lunches at their sides, squeezed cigarettes between their blackened lips, laughed and catcalled from the inferno of iron melting iron. Blue burst of a man-made hell, the heat to the passerby, palpable, inescapable. Oils thickened in nostrils. A satin hair ribbon decorated a filthy throat. In dread, I dreamed of the lewd calling, whistling boys who inhaled oil and salt, exhaled virile lust. Boys on the other side now of the great metal doors of a time. But the silence now cannot silence the bang, clang, bang. One of the boys must have sung to it. One of them must have felt like dancing to that music. The noise was like that, stunning, swirling, sweeping, sweating, sweet in the groin. The noise changed teenage boys into men as their greased hands slid up and around curves of machinery. So, thank you. Thank you very much. I think, what can I do? I can unmute everybody now? Is that something
No, just unmute Svet, please.
Oh, just Svet, okay.
Yes, because he'll be reading next. That was so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm trying to, did he?
Oh, he's unmuted.
Oh, okay, he's good. Yeah.
Okay, Svet, what an honor to meet you on Zoom. I'm so excited, and thank you for being here from Bulgaria. Oh my gosh. I was hoping you would be able to do this okay to be here, so I am psyched.
So much.
Svet's book, Escape from Crimea, was published last year in Bulgaria. CervenaBar Press will be bringing out the English version this fall, so I'm really excited about that. This book describes the tragedy of the Crimean Ukrainians after Crimea was illegally occupied and annexed by the Russian Federation in 2014. Svet has been under attack. His freedom of expression, he's censored. They're trying to kick him out of many groups, and I'll let him explain that to you. I give you Svet.
Thank you so much. And the book is coming out in Ukrainian next month. And for me, the acceptance by Cervena Barva is something very special. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you all, because I do need moral support in a time when I'm getting constantly attacked by the Putinists here. And of course, I could provide you with more detail if you are interested in it, but just shortly stated, it's an easy battle in our part of the world, and it is a battle for freedom. Um, Catherine, I thank you so much for your poetry, and please send your poems to me. I want to write a review about your poetry, and I want to publish it here in Bulgaria.
Oh, thank you. I will do that.
Certainly welcome. And now I'm going to read an excerpt from my book. It is based on actual events, and the main character, she managed to escape from Crimea after the occupation, and she was escaping from sexual harassment and torture, and she managed to get on a fishing boat and escape to Bulgaria and then to Western Europe. So I'm going to start reading from the very beginning of Escape from Crimea, a short excerpt. The sun descends in a red flame over the Dobruja plains, over the free west, warming the sunflowers for a few final moments. At my back lies the Black Sea, which carried me here from Crimea, saving me from tyranny, allowing me freedom from the inconceivable audacity of a dictatorship. But the memory of my suffering lives on, burning just like that fiery sphere before me. Scenes from my life, before and after, blend together in my mind. Here in the present, I see before me thousands of wind turbines clustered across the great plains, spun by the breeze. Each rotation, each whirl of a blade is a punctuated, eloquent whisper into the ether. Why, why? I turn east to the Black Sea and I look across the dark water toward the horizon. Somewhere there is my Crimea. I'm Tanya, a Ukrainian from Sevastopol. I was a chemical engineer in a large production plant for artificial fertilizers. The plant ran on enormous quantities of natural gas, which came from Russia at twice the price of that in Europe. Until 2014, I lived fairly well, although my salary was modest. I'm 29 years old, not yet married. I come from a small village near Lvov. My parents live there still, as do my sister and her husband. I shared an apartment owned by the plant with my colleague Masha, who had managed to leave Kazakhstan and the Nazarbayev's regime and to find quiet refuge in Ukraine. She was a nuclear engineer. I'm no nationalist, and I was not particularly interested in politics, but I expected our leaders to be decent and honest people. Science was my hobby, and I dreamed of pursuing my PhD in chemistry at Sevastopol State University. When ordinary Ukrainians resisted our corrupt President Yanukovych and his criminal Camarilla, we accomplished something wonderful. Things changed. They may have shot us in the Maidan Square in Kiev, and we may have been beaten by the Berkut special forces. But in the end, we were victorious. Yanukovych was removed from power and fled to Moscow, the source of his orders for a long time anyway. freedom, hope, and the possibility of a new independent life were all within reach. We were on a path toward Europe, toward the European Union. We had freed ourselves from the shackles of Putin and the war of imperial dissimulation that he waged on our country. At least that is what happened for most Ukrainians, but not for us in Crimea. In March 2014, a referendum was called in Crimea about joining Russia. This was against the Ukrainian constitution, but for all intents and purposes, Crimea had already been occupied by Russian special forces, paramilitary units, secret Russian militias, armed bands, and commandos. They had installed a commandant, a governor, a militia commander. On orders from the Kremlin, they announced and scheduled the referendum. On the day of the referendum, they gathered us all in the courtyard of the plant. Heavily armed men appeared, bearing no military insignia, led by a tall, strong, middle-aged man who called himself Chesnyakov. We later learned that he was a colonel in the Russian Special Forces and a veteran of the Soviet-Afghan War of the 1980s. Think very carefully about your vote tomorrow, barked Chesnyakov loudly and commandingly. Remember that Crimea is and always will be Russian. Anyone who votes no may have to worry about where they are going to work and how they are going to live. We stood in a somber silence. Our gray-haired director, a man of dignity, dared not say a word and stood in the back of the courtyard. When we went to vote, all of the voting stations were surrounded by Crimea's new pro-Russian militia. There were tanks, AK-47s, machine guns, other guns, many soldiers and officers. At the school where I was assigned to vote, young Ukrainian boys who were demonstrating peacefully against Crimea joining Russia. Suddenly they were attacked by paramilitary units along with gangsters and former Berkut forces. These beat up some of the boys and threw them like dead dogs in a big dumpster. They left others lying bloody on the pavement. Others they loaded nearly lifeless into military trucks of some sort. I voted against. Most of my colleagues voted against. But somehow when they announced the results that evening, it turned out that 93% of Crimea had voted to join Russia. And that was the beginning of my own personal hell. Just a week after this so-called referendum, which had been carried out with Kalashnikovs pointed at the citizens, our old director was replaced and they began firing the Ukrainians at the plant. We held a strike in front of the plant. We held up posters. Stop firing Ukrainians. Energy independence from Russia. Think about food for our families. My roommate Masha and I, along with around 10 colleagues, held up a huge sign, stop the occupation of Crimea. Suddenly, two large commando units and civilian paramilitary formations came out of nowhere. They came at us with clubs and sticks. They dragged people along the ground and kicked them in the head. They grabbed our unit head, Ivanchuk, and pulled him in front of us to make an example of him. Colonel Chesnyakov stepped over. He had now been officially put in charge of the Crimea militia. I warned you, Chesnyakov shouted. Who do you think you are? Well, disgusting Bandera revolutionaries. Knuckleheads, imbecile, rustic peasants. I told you Crimea is ours. You bunch of trash. Chesnyakov pulled out a pistol and shot behind Ivanchuk's head. The man thought he was dying and he crumpled to the ground terrified. We sighed in relief when we saw that he was all right. But then Chesnyakov, grabbing him with one strong fist, lifted him by the collar out of the dust, put the muzzle of his gun to the back of Ivanchuk's head and pulled the trigger. It was a horrifying sight. Blood and brains sprayed out in our direction and the people in front got splattered. I watched as Ivanchuk writhed on the ground and then convulsed before finally going still. It was the first time I had seen a person die. I turned around and vomited. All around, women and men were throwing up, cursing, pleading, crying, and screaming. Chesnyakov stood in front of us and laughed. Any more protests, you rats? Well, who wants to join Ivanchuk? We trembled in silence. The commandos arrested 12 of our union organizers, loaded them into armored jeeps, and disappeared, led by Chesnyakov. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I kept picturing poor Ivanchuk's shattered head. Chesnyakov's ugly face kept popping out at me, yelling, I will send you to the bottom of the Black Sea for the fish to gnaw the skin of your bones. Old fears and traumas kept me awake as well. In the morning, my face puffy and eyes bloodshot. After a sleepless night with not a minute of rest, I went to work in total shock from the horror and violence that were still fresh in my mind. My colleagues were in the same state, defeated, despondent, confused, depressed. They started calling us into the new director's office one by one. My turn arrived in just an hour. I went into the plant director's office, quivering and terrified. He was seated behind his enormous desk, a remnant of the times in the USSR when the plant was called Leonid Brezhnev. A large portrait of Vladimir Putin hung over his head. Grinning maliciously, the director did not invite me to sit, but left me standing by the door. He fixed his eyes on me and murmured, "Effective immediately, consider your employment terminated. And as the department is plant property, you and Masha must be out by tonight." But that would leave me out on the street. Are there grounds for my termination? There are. Incompetence and serving as a bad influence on the work environment. That's all. Have your things out of the apartment by 8 o'clock tonight and leave the key with the porter. Dismissed. I turned away, grabbed the doorknob, started to open the door. Then I turned again to face the director and whispered, "Criminals." Thank you. I will stop here, and it's a very, very long story.
Thank you, Svet.
Thank you,
That
Gloria.
was,
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you. I just wanted to say, you can tell by hearing what Svet read with us that it's an important book and it needs to be read, and we need to fight for freedom of expression and no censorship. So thank you so much, and we will fight on, that's for sure. So thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Your support is crucial to me. So thank you all.
Yes, you always have it, for
Yeah.
sure. And Catherine and Svet, really thank you so much for reading tonight. It is an honor to have both of you here to
Oh,
share your
thanks so
work.
much, Gloria.
Yes. And we're going to have a short question and answer. So if you have a question, I would like everybody to stay muted except a person who's asking the question. That way it doesn't get crazy. So Catherine, I'm going to turn over the question and answer to you, especially since you know most of the people here.
I
And
know, I know.
that'll be easier. So
Okay.
I turn it over to you.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions for either one of us? Connie, can you unmute yourself? Oh, yeah,
I think I can, yeah.
thank you.
So I can't believe I haven't asked you this already, but better late than never. I'm wondering, it's kind of a process question, how this manuscript took form, how you found yourself gravitating towards this exploration and discovery of ancestors and identity. And I'm just curious about how that happened.
Yeah, well, I truly, some of the poems in this manuscript are 25 years old. There's a few I wrote a very long time ago. So it seems that whatever else I've been working on, because I have such a solid foundation with my family and my heritage, that they've always come in along the journey, my journey as a writer. And certainly when I took that last trip to Greece, everything was amplified. So, you know, I was just there and I was living with the sounds and smells and tastes and, you know, everything of Greek living. So, so it just, there was no way I couldn't write about it. And then, you know, in some of these pieces, like when the piece about my grandfather, that was in just a free writing about my grandfather tossing pennies to us. He'd say, stand on, and he had a heavy Greek accent, but he'd be, you know, stand on your head, and this is how you're going to learn the Greek alphabet. So, and, you know, so none of us could stand on our heads, but he would just be laughing and throwing us pennies anyway. So that was just, you know, out of a notebook, and it came up again when I was going through boxes and looking through old notebooks, and I thought, wow, okay, I've got a lot of poems or free writes that are just have to do from where I come from. And so, so that's how this book started forming. And truly it was that last time when I was at the Lacos artist residency that I just knew it was going to take shape from that trip. So, yeah.
Hi, Catherine. I have a question about process too. When you and also thank you for the other question. That was again changing location, literally physically being somewhere different or that's familiar, differently familiar. I think is wonderful to inspire us. When you sit down to write a poem, does it write itself, or do you sit down and say, "I want to convey this right now. This is what I want to say," or is it both?
I would say, well, in this manuscript, many of the poems or the rough drafts, so just the filling of notebooks where there's a lot of emotion behind them, and I could sit, I mean, there's one poem I have such an early draft of it, and I'm trying to move it up to kind of where I am now with my writing. But I remember sitting down and writing it, and it's called kukla. Kukla is doll, you know, in Greek, or and my grandmother's friend had missing fingers that were chopped off. She worked in I think in the shoe factory, Mom, I think, right? And so the whole poem came from just this incredible memory. And I had a cabin I was working in then, and I was just weeping the whole time I was writing this piece. That piece almost came out as it is right now for me, except it's not, it can't go into the book I'm writing in the form it is now. It doesn't, there's something that's not working yet for it, and for me. But no, I don't sit down and say I'm going to write about, you know, my iPhone. You know, I don't sit down and say I'm going to, you know, write about the birds. I could be sitting at my desk, and I prefer to write freehand also rather than on a computer. And, you know, and certainly the multicolored birds outside, oh, let me just see, somebody's trying to get back in, you know, could inspire something in the poem. But I don't typically sit down with an idea and say, this is what this is going to be about. So.
Thank you so much for sharing, Catherine, and Cervette too, and Glow, as always. Without you, we wouldn't be here. Thank you too.
I have a question.
Who was it?
For Catherine Bernadette.
Oh, Bernadette. Oh, hi, Bernadette.
I loved hearing your poetry. Thank you. And my question is, looking at work that you wrote 25 years ago, and the emotion, the words on the page are 25 years ago in emotion, and now you're writing the manuscript. Were there a lot of changes? In other words, emotionally, you're someone else. You know what I mean?
Well, true and not true. I'm still the same person who experienced that. I would say what's very much, yes, I'm 25 years older too, so there's a whole life of experience, but I would say what shifts in the 25 years of writing is how I put my language.
Oh, what happened?
Hmm.
Oh, did I lose you?
Did everybody just freeze?
Yeah.
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 I think, is everybody there? I
Yes.
think it froze for
We're
a minute.
back. We're back.
We're back. Yeah.
Oh, but I think, you know, I've evolved, and so my writing has evolved, and the way I use language on the page is more sparse now. I try to use fewer words now. Although the musicality, I think that's been running through my work forever is still there. So, Brenda.
Kathy, that poem rocked then and it still rocks.
Oh, thank you.
It really does. It just holds up over time. I remember when you brought that to workshop. It is such a good poem.
I know, thank
It's
you.
really great. It holds up, and I'm so glad Cal's going to print it.
I know.
I can't wait to see it in the magazine. And so that reading was great, both of you. And Svet, I wanted to also ask Svet if so is there trouble with all of the oppression that you've suffered, if you've had trouble publishing, or if you're having, I'm not sure if he's still on the
I see. Yeah, he's there. I see him.
yeah, if he's had trouble publishing, or if he's in any sort of danger actually publishing his work. And I'll mute myself now.
Thanks. Actually, in the very beginning, I did have troubles with publishing too, but it was easier to overcome that kind of trouble. And after the book was published, then the big trouble started for me. The Union of Bulgarian Writers wrote a special declaration against my book, and also they wrote a special declaration against Ukraine and against the Ukrainian ambassador to Bulgaria. And they stated in their pro-Russian declaration that they want the Ukrainian ambassador expelled from Bulgaria because of his support and of his presence to the book promotion of my book. It was a big shame for Bulgaria, and the Union of Writers basically created a big scandal between the two countries because, of course, there had to be some feedback from Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, etc., etc. At the same time, I was a member of the Bulgarian Pen Center, and I was hoping to get some defense or some support from them. They did not provide me with any kind of support. On the contrary, 6 of them also joined this shameful declaration by the Bulgarian Union of Writers, stating that in its history, the Bulgarian Union of Writers has never turned against Russia. So this is the short story, plus there were so many articles against me in the newspapers of the Socialist Party, in some leftist, rightist, or whatever media, but controlled by Putinist media. In spite of politics, it was the global umbrella from Kremlin controlling this kind of media here. And also, I got the defense of the Ukrainian Pen Center, though the Latvian Pen, the Ukrainian embassy here, and the Atlantic Council of Bulgaria, and about 3-4 intellectuals and journalists. So I'm very, very thankful to all of you, my new American friends, because a publication of my book in the United States will be a high level of defense for me here. I'm especially very, very thankful to Gloria.
Yeah.
And thank you all.
Yeah. Andrea. Oh, here, let me unmute you. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Andrea, can you unmute yourself?
unmute. There it is.
Oh, there you go.
What is the name of the book and when is it coming out? Svet.
The name of the book is Escape from Crimea.
Okay.
And as for the schedule for coming out, I think Gloria said in the fall, which made me very, very happy. And I don't know whether you can see my little friend here.
Look at that.
Her name is Virginia.
Virginia.
Virginia. It's she.
Did you see my cat?
Oh,
Thank
so-
you.
So
Hi guys, I have a quick question, sorry.
Oh, who's that?
This is Renuka.
Oh, Renuka, hi.
Hi Catherine, hi Svet. Thank you both for reading tonight. I loved what you both read. And
Very nice to meet you. Thank you.
hi Svet. I have a question for both of you actually. I was wondering if you guys could both speak a little bit about what you're currently working on. Is it another manuscript? Is it what's out there that's inspiring you right now, and how is it being channeled into your current work? Can you guys speak on that a little bit?
Catherine, do you go first?
Well,
Ladies first.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm trying to finish this latest revision of this manuscript, Ekaterina. I'm not sure if that's going to be the title at the end of it, but it's been the working title. It's the kind of the formal Catherine, Saint Catherine in Greek. But I'm not sure if that's going to be the book's final title. And I started writing some new material and a lot of the pieces start there to the unholy. So that's what I've been writing about during this, coronavirus, because I haven't been able to really address the virus because sometimes when I'm living in the midst of something, I can't write about it, but it's coming in. There's a lot of unholy that I'm directing my poems to. So that's what I'm doing right now. And it's a lot of free writing. I don't even know if I can't even remember if I've taken anything from my notebook and actually started to form a poem, but I feel it in the material. When I'm writing, I can feel it. I feel the energy of poems developing. But I'm so focused on getting this other manuscript finally finished and out that I'm trying not to have too many distractions. So.
And Catherine, I think unholy is such a perfect metaphor. Keep that in mind and convey that. We all need to feel that perspective. Well done. And Svet, I wanted to say, Svet, well done, sir. You're a fearless person. Thank you for your voice. I'm very much looking forward to getting your book in the fall. Congratulations, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Actually, right now I'm writing a screenplay, a feature film screenplay based on my book. I need about 4 more weeks, and this script will be available in English, in Ukrainian, in Bulgarian, and this is the project I'm working on now with the idea of finding some investors for this feature film, which is something which is needed by Ukrainians. Actually, Russia already has their propaganda film, Crimea, in which they only put their point of view, and it's a very manipulative film. And Ukraine has a lot of documentaries, but they still don't have a feature film describing the occupation of Crimea. I hope they will be able to support that.
That I'm going to put you in contact with someone in the Ukraine. I'll send you an email about that because maybe they can't help you with that, but they can maybe steer you in the right direction. And you probably heard of him. I just can't think of the name right now because I can't pronounce it. So I have to do it phonetically. So I'll email you. That's easier.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Glo. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we close?
Yeah, thanks to everybody. Oh, Bernadette, do you have another question?
Yeah, thanks. Just quickly, my question is directed to Svet. I really was impressed and saddened by your book, by hearing you. And I'm just wondering, we're going through a nightmare in our country. And Putin right now, there's a lot of demonstrations against him as well. What do you think the situation might be? Is the Ukrainian and the Crimea, do they have any hopes of something maybe turning in their direction? And the other thing is, there's two Russian filmmakers who are like anti-Russian, and their films get out. And one, I cannot remember the names, but one is the director of the film Leviathan, The Whale. Okay, and the other is the director of Beanpole. So I think in addition to the Ukrainian, possibly filmmakers, there are Russian filmmakers who are trying to tell the truth. Where do you think Ukraine and Crimea are now vis-a-vis Russia? Putin's Russia.
First of all, I agree with you. There is a civil resistance movement right now going on, and it is getting more and more power. It started from the Far East part of Russia, but now it's moving to other cities and even to the capital. Of course, only one day, their police arrested like 150 people in Moscow just because they wanted Putin to resign. And probably you know that he just changed their constitution, and he now prepares to rule Russia until 2036.
Yes.
Which is crazy. And considering his best friend, the leader of China, who changed Chinese constitution so he can rule China forever too. Yeah. Now we have this nice, I mean, not very nice axis between Moscow and Beijing. Of course, I know there are Russian dissidents and very decent people who are resisting what's going on in Russia. The problem is that this feature film, which was a typical propaganda movie produced by Russia, was funded by the Ministry of Defense of Russia.
Oh, well.
In terms of art quality, it was so bad that even some of the Russian movie critics criticized that movie. And of course, it turns the truth upside down. And in this movie, Ukrainians are portrayed as fascists, as criminals, murderers, etc., etc. And in fact, it is 1.7 million Ukrainians who had to flee their homes in both in Crimea and Donbass and Lugansk. And I was listening the other day to General, I think his name is Ben Hodges. I mean, he used to be in charge of the American troops in Europe, and he was speaking openly on a public interview about possible military movements of Russia in September, and the West is afraid that there is some chance for Russia to invade the southern part of Ukraine, because this will enable Russia to have a land connection with Crimea. Right now they just have the bridge, but if they invade an area which is called Mariupol, they will have a land control. And all this is the hybrid war we are in right now. And I'm trying, actually today we did a pilot on an independent TV here, trying to resist the Russian propaganda and the hybrid war.
Yes, well, so are we on our side. Yes, so are we on our side. So are we on our side.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
God.
But see, as a very good friend of mine from the United States says, always the protests in America bring for some change, for something for the history to move forward, even with civil rights, with everything. And in the eastern part of the world, the protests make the governments and the dictators in the east to be tougher on people. This is the difference. So America has this chance, the prospect of horizon, an endless horizon. So you guys always can do it better.
We're hoping come November. We're hoping.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
anyway, so
Thank
great.
you so much.
Yeah, I think if anyone else, Emily, did you want to ask something or no? Okay. Thank you all very much. I see some of my students from last weekend at the Taos conference are here listening, and Pammy, my oldest friend in the world, is there from Maine. Nancy, my college roommate. Judith, who else is here? A lot of my friends have gotten off already. So anyway, Andrea, who published The Mistress for me. But
Your mother and daughter.
and my daughter and my mother are here. It's been great. Carol from Hawaii, I got a message from her this afternoon. I was like, whoa, you know. Anyway, thanks everybody so much. And Brenda, it was just really wonderful to see you. Yay. Svet, I will send my work to you.
Please do. Please, I'm looking forward to writing the review about it.
Oh, maybe I'll send a book. I'll send a book over.
Okay, anything you choose. And,
Yeah, I'll get in touch
you're
with you.
brilliant.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay
Nice
safe.
seeing you all.
Yeah, see you.
And Nancy,
Bye-bye.
and Miko, where did you go? She disappeared.